So now guys, what I'm going to go ahead and do is, well, this part of the course we're talking about how to erase backgrounds. So what I want to do is I want to erase the entire background and just have this Buddha head statue sculpture in itself. So the thing about Photoshop is there's like 100 different ways to do one thing. So if I go ahead and unlock this layer, now it's ready to be edited. What I'm going to go ahead and do first is I'm going to create, excuse me, I'm going to come down to this little semicircle, drop up menu, click on it, and click the solid color. And I'm just going to create a layer that is a solid color and just drag it behind the layer I'm erasing. I do this because if you have that turned off and you just start erasing, sometimes it's hard to see if you have any discrepancies or any like little bits of pixels or lines. It's hard to see that when you have this kind of checkered transparent background. So when I have the colored background selected and on, whether it be white, black, whatever color, it really helps you see if you have any mistakes in your erasing. So that's why I have that there. So let's go back and do this. So again, like I said, there's several, if not many different ways to do one thing in Photoshop. So, one way to erase the background is to just kind of start erasing, but that's gonna take way longer. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come up here, and if you don't see it, it's either you just come up, right click the magic wand button or the quick selection one. And what I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna have the quick selection tool selected, and I'm gonna go ahead and start selecting the entire head in its entirety. So I'm just going to go ahead and start clicking and dragging, and it should just kind of snap to where the selection is. Now, you'll notice in the little circle icon that is the brush tool, it's very hard to see, but there's a little plus sign in the middle crosshair, and when you click and hold option, it turns into a minus sign. You see that? It's kind of hard to see, but when you hold option, it turns into a minus sign. So what that means is if you're holding option and you use the selection tool, instead of selecting, come on Siri, get out of here. When you hold option and start to select, it's going to start deselecting. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is make this a little smaller. Again, just like Illustrator, when you want to increase or decrease the brush size or eraser size, it's just the left and right brackets on the right side of your keyboard. So I'm going to select more of this, and I'm going to hold down option and start to deselect some stuff. You'll see it kind of start to go away. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm going to leave this stuff down here just to kind of show you a few ways to combat that. So, okay, everything looks pretty good. I have it selected, but you don't just want to... Why is this like that? Okay, there we go. That's weird. Okay, so I have the head selected. Now, if I just delete it, it's the opposite of what I want. I want the background deleted. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is come up to select at the top here, select inverse. So now it selects everything outside of what I had selected, the inverse of what I selected. So now it's the background that's selected. So I go ahead, click delete, and there you go. Easy as pie. So then what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to click E for eraser, make it smaller, and just clean up a lot of the little lines and things I missed. So remember earlier when I said the reason I have a colored background is so you could see mistakes like this where it actually didn't erase, where if you have no background, it's really hard to see that. So that's why I usually have a colored background, whether it be a different color, whether it be black, whether it be white. It's easier to see the little things you missed. So again, make sure you have, let's rename this layer head. You want to make sure you have the head layer selected, because if I have this layer selected, even though I'm trying to erase it, it's not even going to let me erase it because I have to have this layer selected. So let's go ahead and start cleaning this up a little bit. Now, when you're erasing backgrounds, it's really easy to kind of get caught up in, oh my god, it has to be perfect, it has to be perfect. It really doesn't, because in the grand scheme of things, you see, I'm just basically erasing part of this sculpture, but when you zoom out, you really can't tell. It's not a big deal, and I've learned that especially when I'm trying to clean up like photos of clothing where I erase the background and I start just erasing parts of the t-shirt or the hoodie. It really doesn't matter because it's not like you're erasing like huge chunks like that. It's very little you're erasing. So I'm just kind of going in that much because I don't want to take away from the angle of the neckline. So let's just do that, kind of come trail off. Get rid of this. Okay. Let's come up. How we looking? There we go. That looks pretty good. Let's round this ear off a little bit. Cool. So there we go. Now that's one of the ways, and one of the most effective ways to erase backgrounds is using the quick selection tool on the object you want to keep, and then selecting inverse and deleting that stuff, and then coming in and cleaning it up. You can also, if you have, let's say, a white background or a solid color background that's really easy to erase and get rid of, you could just quick select the entire background. But because my original background was just a ton of different things, it was a wall with picture frames in different colors, and there was a table, I selected the image that I wanted to remain, and then selected everything else. So I'm gonna go ahead, actually let's do this. Let's actually go ahead and clean this up a little bit. So I'm using the spot healing brush, and what I'm gonna go ahead and do is just kind of clean up some of these, let's call it acne, right, for the Buddha. Just clicking, and you can see that these little blemishes and discrepancies are kind of disappearing. Now, I usually just kind of go over and click. You can go like this and brush, but sometimes you kind of get weird results. That actually looks pretty good. So yeah, that's kind of what I mean. We get these like weird lines. So sometimes it's good to just kind of come in and just click a bunch. So if you're somebody who has a lot of acne, this is a perfect tool for you. When I used to eat dairy, ever since I cut out dairy, my acne basically went away. But when I had acne, I'd kind of come in and just kind of clean it up a little bit. Because let's face it, I am a basic white girl. So let's clean this up a little bit. Even if it's like little freckles or something you want to get rid of. Okay, that looks really good. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is save this. I'm going to actually make this a little bigger. So Command T will bring up these guidelines. And what's interesting about Photoshop is you can see I'm clicking and dragging, and it's scaling it nice and evenly. Photoshop did this update recently where if you look back at Adobe Illustrator, I told you if you want to scale something nice and evenly, click and hold Shift, and it'll scale it nice and easily. Photoshop updated it, and now it's the opposite, where if you click and hold Shift and try to scale it, it's going to be all super weird and wonky. Whereas if you don't hold Shift at all, if you just kind of click and drag, it'll scale it nice and evenly. So that's a little weird, but we're living. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is just save this as a Buddha head template, as a Photoshop file. So we're going to leave this here. We'll end this video here. Good stuff. Thanks for listening. And I'm going to come back to the Buddha head in a different part when we talk about adding filters and changing the color. So we can start to really do some fun stuff with this Buddha head here. So with that, I will see you in the next video.